I don't hate on guys fishing custom rods. I've always been a fan of custom ice rods.
You know, a lot of times some of the high-end stuff, it's nice, but it's not necessary.
Oh, I'm all for it. There's no need to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, I get it. You know, I don't have a problem with that.
I feel the benefits to custom ice rods are, in short, to be 100% honest, in panfish rods, when I'm talking fiberglass blanks, noodle rods, they're all about the same. I mean, you really have to pick them all up and decide from there. Where I think the custom comes in is with custom tapers, and that's where you get into your perch, your heavier, crappie rods, things like that, where the company will actually custom do a taper to that rod. And that's where I feel, at least in my personal experience, where custom rods or custom engineered rods, it doesn't matter if they're hand wrapped by a person, but as long as that blank has actually been used, tested, I don't care where it's made, just as long as it's the best in your opinion for that application.
If you're a serious fisherman and it's more than a hobby and you really enjoy doing it, now you have the opportunity to pick and choose specialty custom rods for a lot of specialty applications. And I love it. I love custom rods. I think it gives fishermen a lot of different options for different styles and techniques of fishing, and I'm a big believer too in a lot of times you get what you pay for, and sometimes with some good custom rods, you get a really good product, and a good warranty. So I'm a fan of them.
I've always been a fan of custom ice rods. I've used many different varieties. I've built my own rods. I've helped design some custom ice rods. And I think the whole thing with a custom ice rod, and there are very few out there nowadays that are truly custom. I think the thing with a custom ice rod is you compare it to the exact weirdest oddball situation you've ever encountered. For example, I've got a late ice bite. It's for crappies on a shallow weed bed. It's about 7-8 feet of water, and they're huge crappies, but they're so finicky. You're staring through the little sliver of ice, trying to look down on them, and you're almost jigging back this way as the line drapes over the side of the hole. The rod needs to be crazy, crazy stiff because you can't take big swings and misses or they see you. So literally, I have to be able to twist my wrist and set the hook. So there's a crazy application. It's so weird, it's so oddball, it's rare, and without a custom designed rod of a certain length to fish that bite, you're looking at a 1 or 2 fish day versus dozens.
Yeah, I get it. I don't have a problem with that. I'm a firm believer. I've gone through life. You look at some of the people that were on the Titanic, they said they'll take the cheesecake tomorrow. Well, we all know what happened. And I guess my point is, treat yourself to some of these nice items that are out there today. And because it'll up your game. Having that positive mindset as you approach open or ice is very important. And if that's going to give you a positive mindset, by all means, go ahead and do that.
I think that when it comes to gear, all gear, and it doesn't make a difference if it's a rod or reel, if it's electronics, if it's your boat, whatever it happens to be in the world of fishing, the dollar amount that's associated with it has less to do with it than how well you're able to use it. So especially a rod and reel. A rod and reel is an extension of your arm, and that needs to fit like a glove. If you need someone to build a custom one for you to make that work, great. If your extension of your rod or extension of your arm is the same rod you've been using since you were a youngster, then go with it, right? Because it's whatever you're most comfortable with, whatever you've got the most confidence in, because confidence trumps everything in the world of fishing in my mind. You still got to find the fish, but if you're confident, you're going to be able to catch them when you find them.
That's a great question. Spending more money these days obviously means quality, and it's so nice to have all the quality gear that we have for ice fishing in general. Rods aside, the gear has gotten so much better, so much nicer. 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, you'd get in your boat and you had the nicest rods, you had the nicest gear that money could buy, and then you get into ice fishing and some of the gear was okay, some of the gear wasn't. And now you have top-notch gear across the board. So I don't care if you're in open water or ice fishing, you can fish with the same quality both seasons and just have the nicest gear all around. So
Years ago, I would have said it probably isn't that important because it's a very short, it's a short extension of your arm. When you use when you're using a 6.5, 7.5 foot rod, it's longer and you're more dependent on the action of the rod. But I'm talking years ago now, so it's an extension of your arm. And I know when I first started walleye fishing and jigging spoons and stuff, I used a very, very inexpensive rod, like an ugly stick or something like that. No action hardly at all. It was stiff. There was no feel. I mean, the bite was the feel when you would get that thump, But now, with the intricacy of how the rods are made for different species, and I think that there's a real place for this custom rod business because of the fact that all anglers have a different they have a different procedure in how they fish, and I think it's given us an opportunity to have really, really good equipment in our hands. And I can feel a bite now that I can tell you for sure I would have had to have a spring bobber, and I used spring bobbers for many years, especially panfish. But now you're getting rods that, like, for instance, like tuned up mace, which you have the noodle, or you have the tip is so delicate, and those are things that have brought the custom rod into the ice fishing market at a real positive time. People are buying them. They're not even worried about paying $100 for an ice rod anymore. I would have, if you would have told me that 10, 15 years ago, I would have said, is there something wrong with you? But now I can tell you that it is, it's something that has come along, and I have bought into it, and I am a very big advocate of having tackle that fits you, that you're very happy with, and you can do many different things. There's so many different actions of these rods now, and that really portrays what the custom rod business really is now on the ice rod side.
There's a big movement to buying custom ice rods, and I'm not against that in any way. I think if you have a product that you have confidence in, a product that you enjoy fishing, a product that you believe or does improve the number of fish you're catching, I'd say go for it. Having said that, I don't think there's a need, if you're watching a bobber or any type of a spring bobber type thing, that you're going to need to spend $100, $150 on an ice rod. If that's the direction you want to go, I'd say go for it. And I do believe that the quality ones that are out there probably will put more fish in, on the ice for you. But there's no need to spend that kind of money unless you really feel that need.
At the end of the day, it's not like the fish look up the hole, care what kind of boat you're fishing out of in the summer, what kind of fish house you're fishing out of, what kind of rod you're holding, whatever. You just have to have a tool that's going to do the job. And so, even if it's a noodle rod, whatever it is, obviously, with custom rods, you can get something made specifically for you and use really high components. But, you don't have to, all it has to do is be good enough. And that's been the success with our rod line, is we've got a phenomenal lineup of rods that are good enough. I catch, I don't know how many thousands of fish with them. I've never had a person next to me that spent twice as much on a rod or more money that caught twice as many fish. It doesn't line up. And so if you were to look at some of the stuff with fishing from the brain of a cow, as far as, okay, where's my rate of return quit? A lot of times some of the high-end stuff, it's nice, but it's not necessary. And I always stress that if you fish a lot, you're going to want to have the best at times. But for a lot of new people getting in, that have never done it or just want a specialized tool that's good enough, there's a lot of phenomenal options right now that are, say, $30 to $50 that didn't exist even 10 years ago. And they're going to help you catch fish, whether it's just a rod that'll pair it perfectly, like with a jigging wrap or a swim lure style bait, or a spoon, or a light action rod that'll delicately present tungsten and soft plastic for bluegills. You can find really good stuff out there, and it isn't going to break the bank, and it's going to catch plenty of fish. And I always joke, if you're a good fisherman, you're fishing in the right spot, you can do a lot of things wrong, and people worry about the wrong stuff.
Well, I think if it's, the extra money is worth it if you're going to get a good quality graphite blank with a good feel to it, meaning you can feel the lure bouncing, you can feel the bites. But to spend a lot of extra money to get a spring bobber or a soft tip rod where you're looking for the bite, I don't think that that's a good value. But there's nothing wrong with a good quality custom rod that is sensitive, got the proper bend in it, but it needs to be balanced between the rod, the line, and the lure.
Oh, I'm all for it.
You know, and when figured out this hot box system with the snare rods, basically I talked with Joe and got permission from Bass Pro to develop these rods because I knew it would not be a mainstream rod, and helped Joe from JT Outdoors build those snare rods. And he basically has taken that custom rod thing to a whole new level right now. So even the snare rods are $100 rods. You know, they're not the cheapest rods in the world, but they have a very specific function. And you know, all you got to do is go by that booth right now, and you can't get within 20 yards of it because it's so busy, and guys are paying them big dollars for those rods. So I've always been a proponent for it. Thorne Brothers have had a lot of success doing it, and you know, so it makes a big difference, I think, because you can just do things with those rods, and it makes fishing a lot more fun. If you have the right action rod and it's, you know, very lightweight, very feather-like, you know, the fishing part's just that much more fun. I love them. I love them.
I could see the value in it. I appreciate nice things, just like most people. So I don't hate on guys fishing custom rods. They're beautiful. I feel like the rods that I use most are the Legend. The new black rod this year is the Legend Black. So the rod I use most is that one, but when I started using those, it was a buddy of mine making them in his basement, so they were custom rods that he, you know, got St. Croix to produce into the Legend ice rod that everybody knows today. So I feel like I already have a custom rod. I didn't want anybody to get the spring. I thought the spring was my advantage and they should just all go away and not get my rod. And I thought, like, this is why we do so well. And as my partner at the time, Mike McNett, he goes, they still got to come out and catch the fish. They can have the rod, but they still got to come out and find them and catch them with us. And I was like, oh man, you're killing me, dude. I don't know about all that. and as confidence grew from all that, you know, we just continued to do well. And so it's not just the stick that makes the difference. It's, you know, it's the fisherman. So I think a good rod is probably the best investment in ice fishing.